What happens when Sony, the company behind PlayStation, teams up with Honda to build a car? You get AFEELA1. A 300-mile electric car packed with cameras, AI, massive screens, immersive audio, and Sony technology. But there was one problem. Before customers could actually take delivery, the entire project was cancelled. 2. Introduction. AFEELA was one of the most unusual automotive projects of the modern EV era. It came from Sony Honda Mobility, a joint venture created by Sony Group and Honda Motor. The idea was simple but ambitious. Take Honda's experience building cars and combine it with Sony's expertise in entertainment, sensors, software, artificial intelligence, and digital experiences. The result was supposed to be the AFEELA1. It wasn't designed simply as an electric sedan. Sony Honda Mobility described AFEELA as a new type of mobility experience, one where the vehicle could sense the driver and passengers while also becoming a connected entertainment platform. The AFEELA1 was planned for production in Ohio, with California deliveries scheduled for 2026. Two versions were announced: AFEELA 1 Origin, starting at $89,900, and AFEELA 1 Signature at $102,900. But on March 25, 2026, Sony Honda Mobility officially announced that development and launch of AFEELA 1 had been discontinued. Customers who had already reserved the vehicle in California were promised full refunds of their reservation fees. So today, we're going to look at what this remarkable EV was supposed to be. 3. Exterior design. The AFEELA 1 looked unlike a traditional Honda. It was a sleek 5-door electric liftback with a long, smooth body and a very clean front end. Instead of a conventional grille, the front was dominated by a smooth EV face and a narrow lighting signature. The design philosophy was intentionally minimal. Sony Honda Mobility described the exterior as using clean, hard surfaces without excessive decorative lines or exaggerated body sculpting. Aerodynamics were clearly important. The low roofline, smooth body surfaces, flush door areas, and carefully shaped rear section were all designed around efficiency. At the front was another unusual feature: the media bar. This external display was designed to communicate information to people outside the vehicle. It could potentially show charging information, greetings, and other visual content. The AFEELA1 was also offered with different wheel sizes depending on trim. The Origin used 19-inch wheels, while the Signature used 21-inch wheels. And the Signature's larger wheels gave the car a more aggressive appearance. But this wasn't just about styling. The entire exterior was designed around the idea that a modern EV could be both a vehicle and a digital device. 4. Interior. Inside, the AFEELA1 was perhaps even more futuristic. The dashboard was dominated by screens. Instead of a conventional instrument cluster and a single center display, the car used a panoramic screen stretching across the front of the cabin. There were also displays positioned toward the sides of the vehicle to show images from the exterior camera monitoring system. That meant the AFEELA could replace conventional side mirrors with cameras and displays. The interior design followed an oval philosophy. The idea was to create a calm, continuous environment rather than a dashboard filled with separate controls. Materials were another interesting part of the project. Sony Honda Mobility said approximately 70% of the interior surface area used high-quality functional materials that were partially plant-derived or recycled. The focus was not just luxury. It was also sustainability. And then there's the rear cabin. The Signature trim was planned to include a rear entertainment system, turning the back seats into an extension of Sony's entertainment ecosystem. The AFEELA1 was therefore designed for passengers as much as drivers. 5. Technology. This is where the AFEELA1 really separated itself from traditional electric cars. The vehicle was designed around 40 sensors. That included cameras, radar, ultrasonic sensors, and LiDAR. Sony Honda Mobility planned 18 cameras, 1 LiDAR sensor, 9 radar sensors, and 12 ultrasonic sensors. The vehicle was also planned to use up to 800 TOPS of computing power. TOPS means trillions of operations per second. In simple terms, the car was being designed with enormous computing capability to process sensor information and support its driver assistance and software systems. Then came the entertainment. The AFEELA1 featured Sony's immersive audio technology, designed to create a 360-degree spatial sound environment. The cabin was intended to support movies, music, games, and other entertainment. Apps such as RIDEVU and Crunchyroll were demonstrated in the vehicle. Sony was clearly trying to make the car feel less like a traditional dashboard and more like a connected entertainment device. The AFEELA personal agent was another major feature. It was designed as an AI-powered voice assistant that could interact naturally with occupants and help control vehicle functions. There was also 5G connectivity, digital key functionality, smartphone integration, customizable themes, and over-the-air software capabilities. This was Sony's vision of the software-defined vehicle. 6. Engine and performance. The AFEELA1 was fully electric. The announced configuration used dual electric motors and all-wheel drive. Sony Honda Mobility listed a 91 kWh battery and a maximum DC charging rate of 150 kilowatts. The company estimated approximately 300 miles of EPA range for the Origin version. Those figures were preliminary, however, and Sony Honda Mobility explicitly stated that specifications were subject to change. The planned charging system used the North American Charging Standard, or NACS. That was particularly important for US buyers because AFEELA planned compatibility with the Tesla supercharging network. The company advertised access to more than 27,500 NACS superchargers as of early 2026. As for performance, the AFEELA1 was designed as a premium, all-wheel drive EV rather than an extreme performance sedan. But here's where we need to be careful. Because the production launch was cancelled, there was never a final customer-validated performance specification. Figures such as final horsepower, torque, acceleration, and top speed should therefore not be treated as confirmed production numbers. The car was intended to deliver strong electric performance, but it was ultimately the technology and experience, rather than outright speed, that defined AFEELA. 7. Driving experience. Sony Honda Mobility wanted AFEELA to feel distinctly different from a normal electric sedan. The company developed what it called a motion management system, designed to coordinate the motors, brakes, and suspension. The goal was to improve ride comfort and handling together. The AFEELA1 was planned with a double wishbone front suspension and multi-link rear suspension. It also featured active noise cancellation and extensive sound management. That makes sense when you remember Sony's involvement. An EV is already quiet compared with a combustion vehicle. AFEELA wanted to use that quiet environment as the foundation for an immersive audio experience. The steering system was also unusual. The AFEELA1 was planned with a yoke-style steering wheel. And because the vehicle was designed around advanced driver assistance, the steering interface was part of the broader software-driven philosophy. The AFEELA Intelligent Drive System was described as a Level 2+ ADAS system. That does not mean autonomous driving. It means the technology could assist the driver in certain situations, while the driver remained responsible for the vehicle. Unfortunately, there is one thing we cannot provide: a genuine long-term road test verdict. AFEELA1 never reached normal customer production. So any claim that it was definitively better or worse to drive than a Tesla Model S, Lucid Air, or Mercedes EQ model would go beyond the available evidence. 8. Safety. Safety was one of AFEELA's strongest technical ambitions. The sensor package was enormous. The combination of cameras, radar, ultrasonic sensors, and LiDAR was intended to provide the vehicle with a detailed understanding of its surroundings. AFEELA Intelligent Drive used these sensors together with AI-based processing to assist the driver. Sony Honda Mobility described the system as an advanced end-to-end driving support system designed to reduce the burden on the driver in situations such as commuting and longer journeys. The company was also developing AI models specifically for its advanced driver assistance system. But there's an important limitation. The AFEELA1 never became a production vehicle, so it never received a final independent crash test rating from organizations such as NHTSA or IIHS. That means we should not claim a 5-star safety rating or other final crash test result. The technology was ambitious. The production safety certification never happened. 9. Reliability and ownership. This is where the AFEELA story becomes unusual. There is no real-world reliability history because there are no production AFEELA1 vehicles being delivered to ordinary customers. There is no established maintenance record. There is no long-term depreciation history. And there is no production warranty program that customers can use today. Before cancellation, Sony Honda Mobility had planned a direct-to-consumer ownership model and had even announced roadside assistance plans for future AFEELA drivers. But those plans became irrelevant when the vehicle was cancelled. The cancellation itself wasn't announced because of a known reliability problem. Sony Honda Mobility said it no longer had a viable path to bring AFEELA1 and the second AFEELA model to market as originally planned. The reason was connected to Honda's revised electrification strategy and the loss of access to certain Honda technologies and assets originally expected by the joint venture. Then, in April 2026, Sony, Honda, and SHM said it would be difficult to bring products aligned with the joint venture's founding purpose to market in the short to medium term under the existing framework. So the biggest ownership question isn't reliability. It's simple. There is no AFEELA1 to own. 10. Competitor comparison. If it had launched, the AFEELA1 would have entered a highly competitive premium EV market. The Tesla Model S would have been one obvious rival. Tesla had a huge charging network, mature EV software, and years of production experience. The Lucid Air would have been another major competitor. Lucid focused heavily on efficiency, range, luxury, and performance. Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and other premium brands also offered increasingly sophisticated electric sedans. But AFEELA had something different. Sony. Its strongest selling point wasn't necessarily horsepower or range. It was the entertainment experience. AFEELA wanted to make the vehicle feel like a connected Sony product on wheels. The enormous display system, immersive audio, AI assistant, entertainment apps, and digital personalization were supposed to create an ecosystem that traditional automakers didn't necessarily offer. But the weaknesses were equally obvious. The starting price of $89,900 put the AFEELA1 into serious premium territory. And the vehicle would have been entering the EV market against companies with much greater manufacturing scale and established customer networks. 11. Pros and cons. Let's look at the planned AFEELA1 objectively. Pros. First, technology. The sensor package and computing architecture were extremely ambitious. Second, entertainment. Sony's audio, video, gaming, and content expertise gave AFEELA a genuinely different identity. Third, design. The clean exterior and futuristic cabin made the vehicle visually distinctive. Fourth, charging compatibility. NACS support and planned access to Tesla's supercharger network were important advantages for US buyers. And fifth, the all-wheel drive electric powertrain. It offered the performance and traction benefits expected from a premium EV. Cons. The biggest disadvantage is obvious. AFEELA1 was cancelled. Second, the planned starting price of $89,900 was high. Third, the 150 kilowatt maximum DC charging rate would not have been class-leading. Fourth, the enormous number of screens and software systems could have introduced complexity. And finally, the business model was unproven. AFEELA was attempting to enter the automotive industry as a new brand while competing against established luxury manufacturers and large EV companies. 12. Buying advice. Should you buy an AFEELA1? You can't. The vehicle was officially cancelled before customer deliveries began. If you're watching this video because you saw old AFEELA advertisements or reservation information online, remember that those materials describe the vehicle as it was planned before the March 2026 cancellation. The two announced trims were the Origin and Signature. The Origin was priced from $89,900, while the Signature was announced at $102,900. But those prices are historical announced prices, not current purchase prices. Sony Honda Mobility also confirmed that California reservation holders would receive full refunds. So if someone claims to be selling you a new factory AFEELA1 today, that should immediately raise questions. For buyers looking for a premium electric sedan today, there are established alternatives from Tesla, Lucid, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and others. The AFEELA idea was fascinating. But the actual vehicle is no longer coming to market. 13. Final verdict. AFEELA. The 1st of May become one of the most interesting, what-if, cars of the 2020s. Because on paper, the idea was incredibly compelling. Sony Entertainment. Honda Engineering. A premium electric platform. AI. LiDAR. Dozens of sensors. Immersive 3D audio. Huge displays. 5G. An AI personal assistant. And a car designed around the idea that your vehicle could become another part of your digital life. It wasn't trying to beat every competitor in horsepower. It was trying to redefine what you do inside a car. And that is what makes the ending so surprising. AFEELA 1 was scheduled for California deliveries in 2026. It had reservations. It had studios. It had a production plan. It had a price. And it had customers waiting. Then, on March 25, 2026, Sony Honda Mobility pulled the plug. The dream of a Sony Honda production EV was over before the first customer deliveries could begin. AFEELA 1 wasn't necessarily a bad idea. It may simply have arrived in a market, and under a business structure, that could no longer support it. And perhaps that's the most important lesson. In today's automotive industry, building an impressive car is only half the challenge. You also have to build the business around it. AFEELA 1 had the technology. It had the ambition. It had the Sony name. It had Honda Engineering. But it never got the chance to prove itself on the road. AFEELA 1 wasn't the future of the car. It became a glimpse of one possible future. And now, it's a future that will only exist in prototypes, videos, and memories. If you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe for more automotive stories, future EVs, canceled cars, technology breakdowns, and fact-checked reviews. And tell me in the comments, would you have bought the AFEELA 1 for $89,900 if Sony and Honda had actually delivered it?